Chrisean Rock is standing in a room, phone pressed to her ear, and the man on the other end of the line is Deion Sanders, not a rapper, not a reality TV castmate, the head football coach at the University of Colorado, one of the most recognizable figures in American sports, calling a 25-year-old boxer/reality star to tell her he's proud of her. Within seconds, she's fighting back tears. Clip would go viral within hours, but the story behind it stretches back months. Through a street brawl in Compton, a boxing deal signed in January, and a fight that more than 5,800 women wanted to be part of. Call happened after Rock's professional boxing debut on April 25, 2026, when she defeated wrestler and power slap competitor Zenith Zion by split decision at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. Sanders opened with something that sounded less like a coach's pep talk and more like a father sizing up his kid after a hard year. "I've watched you for so many years, and I feel like I know you," he told her, according to video that circulated widely afterward. He described watching her walk up to the weigh-in, noting how she looked, how she carried herself, and said he was proud of her on many levels. He didn't stop at the fight itself. He called what she'd been through a journey, folding the win into something bigger than 3 rounds in a Pennsylvania casino ballroom. Rock's response made clear this wasn't a random celebrity reaching out to inflate her platform. She told Sanders she was a longtime admirer of his, specifically citing the way he talks about motivating his players and his own sons. "I'm so honored. This is so cool. I could cry right now," she said. "You keep on doing it. I see how you pour it to your sons." For a public figure whose image has been shaped almost entirely by chaos, conflict, and reality television editing, this was a rare moment of someone she looked up to, seeing her as more than a headline. To understand why that mattered, you have to go back to December 13th, 2025, and a Christmas parade in Compton that had nothing to do with boxing at all. Rock had been invited as a special guest, and by most accounts, the day started exactly the way organizers hoped. She joined a children's prayer circle, posed for photos, engaged with families. Then, according to multiple outlets including TMZ, a group of women began filming her without her consent. Rock reached over and moved one woman's phone. Seconds later, she was slapped across the face. What followed was a chaotic, multi-person brawl, captured on several phones and uploaded within hours. TMZ reported that sources on scene said Rock held her own against the group. She later went live on social media to insist she'd walked away without injuries, and said she wanted to be held accountable for her part in it, though no police report or arrest information was ever made public tied to the incident. Her ex, Blueface, weighed in publicly too, framing the altercation as a lesson about LA gang culture, rather than defending her outright, which only added another layer to a relationship that had already spent years playing out in public through custody disputes. That parade brawl became, by several accounts, the spark for what came next. Not long after, Rock began training with boxing star Ryan Garcia, who reportedly caught her with an accidental jab during a sparring session. Rather than treat it as a cautionary tale, she leaned in. Weeks later, she signed with XRumble Fighting Championships, a celebrity boxing promotion founded by Damon Feldman, and began working with Calvin Ford, the trainer known for developing WBA champion Gervonta Davis. The deal was announced in January 2026, and TMZ reported that when XRumble put out a call for an opponent, nearly 6,000 women applied for the chance to fight her. Field of 5,824 applicants before settling on Zenith Zion, a Philadelphia-based professional wrestler and former AWA Women's Television Champion with a background in power slap, a discipline built on absorbing and delivering open-hand strikes at close range. "Be prepared, Trizon, because I'm coming to kick your ass," she said, adding that she had the power, the speed, and the heart to back it up, and that she wasn't there for a show, but for a win. The card itself, promoted under the name Road to Redemption, opened with 3 preliminary bouts at 7 p.m. Eastern before the main pay-per-view broadcast began an hour later, structured deliberately to build toward Rock's debut as the night's headline attraction. The fight itself, billed as part of an XRumble card called Road to Redemption, streamed exclusively on Triller TV pay-per-view for $29.99, with ringside tickets running as high as $1,119. It was by any measure an unusual undercard for a boxing event. Floyd Mayweather Sr. worked as the guest referee for the main event, while his daughter Fatima Mayweather fought in a separate bout the same night. Rock entered under her given name, Trejan Malone, branding herself Holy Hands, and began the night praying in her corner before the opening bell. She outweighed Zion by 5 pounds and stood 3 inches taller. Both women entered with 0-0-0 professional records, meaning this was genuinely each fighter's first sanctioned bout, regardless of how much combat experience either had accumulated outside the ropes. The action itself was rough, unpolished, and at times controversial. Rock knocked Zion down in the first round with what multiple outlets described as a thudding right hand, but Moth.S count ran long enough that questions arose about whether the round should have been stopped. Then, in the third round, Rock herself slipped, and the referee ruled it a knockdown against her, forcing her to rise from the canvas. When the scorecards were read, they came back split, 30-29, 29-4, 130, and 29-28, handing Rock the win by the narrowest possible margin. Commentary from outlets covering the event, including Bloody Elbow and Black Enterprise, noted the decision was contested by both judges and viewers, with some fans calling for an immediate rematch. Regardless of how clean the outcome looked on paper, Rock became emotional in the ring once the decision was announced, video of which circulated on social media within minutes of the final bell. Reaction to the fight itself split roughly along the same lines as the judges' scorecards. Some commentary treated the result as a legitimate underdog story, an untrained fighter with 6 months of preparation surviving a wrestler with years of physical conditioning. Other reactions, circulated widely on social media in the hours after the decision, questioned how the judges could have scored 2 of the 3 rounds for Zion at all, given how the fight visually played out, with one widely shared post asking outright how anyone watching could have arrived at that scorecard. That tension between what viewers saw with their own eyes and what the officials ruled has become its own subplot, with some fans openly calling for a rematch between Rock and Zion rather than treating the split decision as a settled result. That emotional reaction is the thread that connects directly to the Sanders phone call. This wasn't a manufactured celebrity endorsement scheduled by a publicist. It came in the immediate aftermath of a fight that Rock had spent months building toward following a year defined by public volatility. Sanders' comments leaned specifically into that arc. He referenced her face looking clear and her body looking good at the weigh-in, phrasing that read less like generic praise and more like someone acknowledging a visible change in her condition compared to what the public had seen from her before. He called the fight warfare and said it wasn't even just the fight, tying her performance to what he described as emotions and the journey she'd been on. None of this happens in a vacuum with Deion Sanders. The Colorado coach has built a public persona substantially around fatherhood, both literal and figurative. And he's shown a pattern of stepping into other people's storylines when he feels a public moment calls for his voice. Just before the Rock phone call made headlines, Sanders found himself managing a separate controversy involving his own son, Shiloh Sanders, a defensive back tie to the broader orbit of players around his program. Cleveland Browns beat writer Mary Kay Cabot had suggested that quarterback Deshaun Watson should replace Sanders' other son, Shedeur Sanders, as the Browns' starting quarterback, saying there was no time to waste, and the team should let the first-team offense start to cook. Shiloh responded publicly with a comment widely interpreted as dismissive toward Cabot, telling her to go make a sandwich, a remark that generated its own wave of criticism online. Deion Sanders addressed the fallout in a video posted to the Well-Off Media YouTube channel while on vacation, notably declining to publicly rebuke his son in the way many expected. "Y'all are over here tripping about what someone said on the internet," he said. "I ain't got time for that. I've got too many things I'm praying for. You're majoring on the minor." Shiloh later clarified that his comment had been aimed specifically at Cabot, rather than female reporters broadly, saying he had an issue with what he characterized as her recurring agenda rather than her gender. Sanders' response to that episode, choosing not to escalate or publicly discipline his son over a viral moment, offers useful context for how he approached the Rock situation days later. In both cases, he opted for a version of fatherly restraint and encouragement rather than public judgment, even when the subject at hand, his own son's comment or Rock's turbulent public history, invited easy criticism from commentators looking for a quick reaction. For Rock, the timing of Sanders' outreach lands against a backdrop that extends well beyond one parade brawl or one boxing match. Her relationship with Blueface, born Jonathan Porter, with whom she shares a son named Chrisean Jr. born in September 2023, has been a fixture of tabloid coverage since the two began dating in 2020. Blueface was released from Lancaster State Prison in November 2025, after serving roughly 2 years on a probation violation tied to a 2021 assault case, and his return set off an almost immediate custody dispute. According to court documents filed in Los Angeles Superior Court and reported by multiple outlets, both Rock and Blueface filed competing motions accusing the other of being an evil influence on their son, with a custody hearing set for mid-December 2025, just days before the Compton parade incident. Rock had briefly floated the idea of reconciling once Blueface came home, calling his release an answered prayer in a social media statement. But he publicly rebuffed the idea during a phone call, telling her he considered their relationship strictly co-parenting.